The Alien Academy's main exam hall was massive, its high ceiling covered with glowing panels that shifted from blue to white as the test hour approached. Rows of desks and holographic screens filled the space, each one waiting for the students who were now gathering in nervous silence. It was not a normal exam. Here, tests were more than questions on a page. They were trials, simulations built to measure not just knowledge but survival. In the far corner, a human girl named Alyssa Carter sat with her arms crossed, her eyes scanning the room like she already knew what was about to happen. She was the only human in the entire academy, the youngest ever to reach the final test of the Advanced Combat Strategy course. Around her, alien cadets whispered in their own languages, some glancing at her with curiosity, others with open hostility. Humans had a strange reputation in the galaxy, brave, unpredictable, and dangerous when pushed. Some races admired that, others feared it, but everyone remembered the old stories from the Orion Wars. The moment the Academy's main instructor, Commander Zarek, entered the hall, the whispers died. Zarek was tall, his scaled skin glistening under the lights, his 4 eyes scanning the room with cold precision. He placed a metal case on the front desk and opened it, revealing a glowing cube, the exam's master control device. This, he said in a deep voice, will begin your final test. Pass, and you will graduate with honors. Fail, and you will never step into a command role. The tension in the room grew heavier. Alyssa stood up, slowly, her boots making a faint sound on the polished floor. Every head turned toward her. She didn't speak loudly, but her words carried through the hall. Before we start, she said, I have one question for everyone here. Some students leaned forward, curious, others rolled their eyes. Her gaze swept across the room, steady and calm. Do you want survivors, she asked, or notes? A moment of stunned silence followed. Some aliens frowned, not sure if they had heard her right. A few laughed, thinking it was a human joke, but older cadets, the ones who had studied military history, stopped smiling. They remembered a human officer in the past asking a similar question before a battle where no enemies survived. One of the reptilian students hissed, "What does that even mean?" Alyssa tilted her head slightly. It means, she said, I can make sure you pass, but it will be messy, very messy. So, decide now. Murmurs spread quickly. Commander Zarek's lower set of eyes narrowed, watching her closely. He didn't interrupt, which meant he was curious, maybe even testing her. The holographic screens around the room flickered to life, showing a preview of the exam environment. It was a massive simulated battlefield, complete with ruins, hostile drones, and shifting terrain. Your task, Zarek announced, is simple. Complete the mission objective before the timer ends. Your team must remain alive to pass. If your squad is wiped out, you fail. But everyone knew, alive, in this simulation didn't just mean virtual injuries. The pain was real, the danger was real, and sometimes the damage left scars that lasted a lifetime. Alyssa leaned back against her desk, a small smile on her lips. She had been in simulations before, but this was different. This was not just about passing. This was about sending a message. 2 alien cadets approached her, one tall and thin with glowing eyes, the other with fur covering his entire body. You're with us, the fur-covered one said, more like an order than a request. Alyssa's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you sure? She asked. I don't play well with people who think they're in charge. The tall one smirked. We just need your human tricks, nothing more. Her smile faded into something sharper. Then I hope you know, she said quietly, human tricks have consequences. Before either of them could reply, the cube in Zarek's hands pulsed with bright light, the signal that the exam was seconds from starting. All cadets, Zarek commanded, prepare for deployment. Seats and desks folded into the floor, replaced by small platforms that began to rise, carrying each group toward the simulation chambers above. Alyssa's platform hummed beneath her feet, the air around her thick with the metallic scent of the Academy's machines. Across from her, other cadets glanced her way, whispering about her earlier question. Was she bluffing? Was she insane? Or, was she truly as dangerous as humans were rumored to be? She kept her eyes forward, her mind already running calculations. The preview of the battlefield flashed again in her mind. Narrow streets, open plazas, hidden sniper towers, and most importantly, the objective location deep in enemy territory. She knew most cadets would take the direct route, fighting their way in, losing members along the way, hoping to barely make it in time. but Alyssa had no intention of playing the game the way they expected. As the platform reached the simulation deck, she adjusted her gloves and whispered to herself, "Survivors or notes? We'll see." The chamber doors slid open, revealing the glowing entrance to the simulated world. A voice echoed through the speakers, "Final test begins in 30 seconds. Alyssa stepped forward without hesitation, and for a moment, the other cadets followed her, not because they trusted her, but because they couldn't look away. Inside the simulation, the sky burned with artificial light, shadows stretched long over broken buildings, and in the far distance, the sound of mechanical footsteps echoed like a storm. She took a deep breath, her eyes scanning every corner, every possible threat. Then, with a calm voice that didn't match the fear rising in others, she said, "Stay close, do exactly as I say, and maybe, just maybe, you'll live to take notes." The countdown hit 0, and the battlefield came alive. The moment Alyssa stepped deeper into the simulation, the air seemed to grow heavier. The sky above was painted a sickly orange, clouds swirling unnaturally fast as if the world itself was impatient for the battle to begin. Her boots crunched against shattered glass and fragments of alien metal, the ruins around her glowing faintly from past explosions. Behind her, the squad shuffled into position, 5 alien cadets, each from different species, each wearing combat gear marked with the Academy crest. None of them spoke, but their eyes stayed locked on Alyssa, some with curiosity, others with a silent question. Why was she so calm? A loud click echoed from the far side of the street. Alyssa froze, holding up her hand. "First rule," she said softly, "when the battlefield is quiet, you're already in someone's crosshairs." The group stopped instantly, scanning rooftops. Then it happened. 3 sharp flashes, sniper rounds ripping through the air. The squad dove for cover, but Alyssa didn't move. Instead she crouched low, drew her sidearm, and fired 3 quick shots without even aiming. There was a distant metallic crash, then silence again. A fur-covered cadet blinked. "You saw them?" Alyssa shook her head. "I heard the servo whine in their weapons," she said. "Old human soldiers learn to trust their ears more than their eyes." The squad exchanged uneasy glances. A sudden voice boomed from the sky. Commander Zarek's voice, broadcasted across the simulation. "Attention cadets, a reminder. This is not a standard exam. Casualties here mean permanent removal from the Academy." The reminder wasn't for everyone. It was for those who thought this was just a game. One of the reptilian cadets sneered, "We're not here to be scared, human, we're here to win." Alyssa's eyes narrowed. "Winning doesn't mean charging forward like an idiot," she replied. "It means understanding the rules, especially the ones written in blood." They didn't understand, not yet. The group moved forward, sticking to the shadows of crumbling walls, their breathing growing heavier as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the distance. At the next intersection, Alyssa stopped them, pointing toward a narrow alley. "We go this way," she said. The tall glowing-eyed cadet shook his head. "No, the map shows a faster route through the plaza." Alyssa didn't argue, she simply said, "Then you'll be walking right into the kill box." The cadet rolled his eyes and stepped toward the plaza entrance. He got 3 steps in before the ground erupted in a violent explosion, the shockwave throwing him back into the wall. Dust and smoke filled the air. When it cleared, the plaza was littered with twisted metal, remains of automated mines. The fur-covered cadet helped the tall one back to his feet, eyes wide. She knew. Alyssa didn't answer. She just kept walking down the alley, forcing them to follow. The narrow path eventually opened into a dim loading bay, half buried under rubble. In the center was a large holographic terminal, the first checkpoint. The moment they stepped inside, the terminal lit up, and a countdown began. 01:00. "Why is it counting down?" one alien asked nervously. Alyssa's voice was calm. "Because this is where they test who pays attention to details." She tapped a few commands into the console, pulling up the security logs. Her eyes scanned the data, then she cursed under her breath. "This isn't a checkpoint," she said. "It's a bait trap." Right on cue, the walls split open, revealing 2 massive combat drones, each armed with twin rotary cannons. The aliens panicked, firing wildly, but their shots barely dented the drone's armor. Alyssa didn't fire. She ran straight toward one of the machines, sliding under its legs and slamming an EMP charge against its main joint. The device exploded in a flash, and the first drone collapsed. The second one turned toward her, cannon spinning. Before it could fire, she hurled a small metal disc into the air. When the cannons fired, the disc exploded into a blinding flash of light. In the confusion, she emptied her sidearm into its exposed sensors, and it toppled over with a loud crash. The squad stared at her, still catching their breath. That, Alyssa said, reloading her weapon, is what I meant by survivors or notes. They didn't laugh this time. The console beeped, and the holographic map updated, showing the location of the main objective. It was deep in enemy territory, surrounded by heavy defenses. Commander Zarek's voice came again. Cadet Carter, your tactics are unconventional. Alyssa smirked. You signed up for results, not tradition. They moved out again. The silence between them no longer filled with doubt, but with a growing awareness. This human wasn't here to compete, she was here to dominate. As they passed under the shadow of a broken tower, a strange metallic hum filled the air. Alyssa stopped mid-step, her hand tightening on her weapon. That sound, she whispered, means the real test is about to begin. The metallic hum grew louder, vibrating through the cracked pavement beneath their boots. It wasn't just sound, it was the kind of deep, mechanical resonance that made the air feel heavier, like something huge was waking up. Alyssa raised her hand, halting the squad instantly. Her eyes scanned the rooftops, the shattered windows, the shadows that moved in ways shadows shouldn't. Listen, she whispered, they've stopped watching us, now they're hunting us. The fur-covered cadet frowned. What's the diff? Rents? Alyssa's gaze didn't leave the street ahead. When they watch, you have time. When they hunt, you're already late.
Without warning, the air cracked with a high-pitched whine. A swarm of black drones dropped from the sky like a rainstorm of steel, their lenses glowing red. They weren't normal training drones. These were the adaptive units the Academy only deployed for advanced trials, machines that could learn your tactics in real time. The squad opened fire, plasma bolts lighting the street, but for every drone that fell, two more slipped around, flanking from above and behind. Alyssa didn't join the panic. She scanned their movements, noting the rhythm in their attacks. They're probing us, she said calmly. They want to see how we react. The tall, glowing-eyed cadet shouted over the chaos. Then let's give them nothing to learn. Alyssa smirked. Exactly. She sprinted toward a half-collapsed building, motioning for the squad to follow. Inside, dust choked the air and shattered furniture blocked their path. Set up a funnel, Alyssa ordered. Make them come in single file. The fur-covered cadet hesitated. That will trap us too. Alyssa shook her head. Not if I trap them first. Within seconds, they rearranged debris into a tight kill corridor, leaving only a narrow gap at the entrance. The first drone zipped inside, its cannons ready, only to slam into a hanging wire Alyssa had yanked across at neck height. It sparked violently, tumbling to the floor. The next drone tried to adjust, but the squad's combined fire ripped it apart before it cleared the entrance. One by one, they came, and one by one they fell. But then the drones adapted, splitting into two groups. One continued the frontal assault while the other began tearing through the side walls. Alyssa cursed under her breath. They're learning faster than expected. The tall cadet growled, then what now? Alyssa's eyes lit with a dangerous idea. Now, we teach them fear. She pulled a small smoot device from her belt, an experimental human tech grenade. Cover your ears, she warned, then rolled it into the incoming wave. The moment it detonated, there was no sound, no light, just a sudden absence, a sensory blackout that overloaded the drone's processors. Half the swarm crashed instantly, smoke rising from their chassis. The remaining units pulled back, reorganizing as if reassessing whether attacking her squad was worth it. Alyssa didn't wait for them to decide. Move, she ordered, and they broke into a run toward the next sector. The streets twisted into a maze of collapsed structures, every corner hiding either safety or death. From the rooftops, mechanical eyes followed their every move. In the distance, the sound of heavy footsteps began, each one making the ground tremble slightly. The squad exchanged nervous glances. What now? The fur-covered cadet asked, breathless. Alyssa's voice was steady. That's not a drone. That's a Titan unit. The tall cadet's eyes widened. Those aren't supposed to be in training simulations. They're not, Alyssa said coldly. Which means someone just changed the rules. The Titan emerged from behind a ruined transport truck, an enormous bipedal war machine. its armored plating reflecting the sickly light. Twin cannons rotated on its shoulders, and in its hands was a massive energy blade crackling with blue arcs. The squad instinctively stepped back, but Alyssa moved forward, her eyes locked on the machine. "I'll distract it," she said. "You get to the rooftop across the street and secure the relay point." The reptilian cadet snapped, "You'll be killed." Alyssa's lips curved into a grin. "Only if I make a mistake." Without another word, she broke into a sprint, weaving through debris as the Titan's cannons lit up the street, each blast sending shockwaves that knocked over rubble. She darted left at those. Last second, rolling behind a fallen column, the Titan's blade slicing through where she had just been. From the corner of her eye, she saw her squad moving, slow, hesitant, but moving. The Titan turned toward them, but Alyssa threw a magnetic charge at its knee joint, the explosion making the massive machine stagger. "Eyes on me, big guy," she muttered, firing at its sensors. The Titan roared, not with sound, but with a sudden surge of energy that crackled across its armor. It lunged, swinging its blade in a deadly arc. Alyssa dropped low, the blade passing just above her head, and planted another charge directly into the Titan's exposed power conduit. The explosion sent it crashing to one knee, sparks showering the street. She didn't have time to finish it. Already new drone signals were pinging in her HUD, surrounding their location. She glanced toward the rooftops. Her squad had reached the relay point, but their faces were pale, eyes fixed on something above them. Then she saw it too. 3 more Titan units approaching from the horizon. Alyssa exhaled slowly. "So, this is how they want to play," she whispered, and for the first time since the test began, her smile returned, the trap no one saw. The first Titan was still sparking on one knee when the other 3 came into view, their silhouettes cutting through the orange haze like moving mountains. Each step they took shook loose dust from the broken buildings, their massive armored frames blotting out what little light remained in the simulated sky. The squad on the rooftop froze, their weapons trembling in their hands. One of them whispered into the comm, We can't fight 3 more of those." Alyssa's voice came back steady. "You're not going to fight them." The fur-covered cadet shouted, "Then what are you going to do?" Alyssa didn't answer right away. She was busy sprinting toward a narrow street between 2 collapsed towers, her boots kicking up debris as she moved. The Titan's tractor, her cannons locking in unison, a swarm of red targeting beams cut through the air, each one landing somewhere on her armor. But instead of diving for cover, Alyssa slowed down, just enough for the Titans to keep aiming. "Come on," she muttered under her breath. "Take the bait." The first blast came like a thunderclap, the ground erupting behind her in a wave of fire and smoke. She darted left, then right, zigzagging between craters as the Titans poured energy fire into the narrow street. From the rooftop, the tall, glowing-eyed cadet shouted, "She's insane!" "No," the reptilian cadet said slowly, his eyes narrowing. "She's drawing them in." Halfway down the narrow street, Alyssa skidded to a stop in front of a large metal hatch buried under rubble. She slammed her palm onto a small control panel beside it, and with a deep groan, the hatch slid open, revealing a dimly lit service tunnel. She jumped in without hesitation, disappearing into the darkness. The Titans followed, their massive frames too big for the tunnel entrance. But their targeting systems didn't care. They fired anyway, blasting the edges of the tunnel, sending chunks of metal raining down. Inside, Alyssa's visor flickered as the tunnel lights stuttered to life, revealing rusted support beams and ancient maintenance pipes. "All right," she said into her comm, "Phase 2. The squad didn't know what she meant until they looked past the Titans. Suddenly, dozens of smaller drones dropped from the rooftops behind them, surrounding the massive machines. Why are they attacking their own Titans?" the fur-covered cadet stammered. "They're not," Alyssa replied. "I reprogrammed those drones earlier to think the Titans were the primary threat." As the drones swarmed the Titans, Alyssa moved deeper into the tunnel, her footsteps echoing off the walls. She reached a junction and pulled out a small device from her belt, a portable signal scrambler. With a flick of her wrist, she activated it, and the tunnel walls lit with red warning lights. The entire underground network began to hum like a living thing. "What did you just do?" the tall cadet demanded over comms. Alyssa's voice was calm, almost amused. "I just woke up the tunnel guardians." From deep within the shadows, the sound of heavy, slow movement began. A moment later, two enormous quadruped machines emerged. Ancient defense units, their armor marked with the insignia of a war long past. They had no allegiance to the simulation's AI. They were simply programmed to destroy anything big enough to be a threat inside the tunnels. The Titans above had stopped moving, their sensors confused by the attacking drones, but one unlucky machine tried to reposition near the tunnel entrance. The Guardians struck like predators, slamming into its legs, tearing through its armor with plasma-tipped claws. The explosion that followed shook the entire street, sending a rain of sparks into the air. From the rooftop, the squad watched in stunned silence. "She's not just fighting the simulation," the reptilian cadet whispered. "She's rewriting it." Alyssa emerged from a side hatch behind them, brushing dust from her armor. Her expression was calm, but there was a faint glint in her eyes, the kind that made even her allies step back a little. "Move to the next sector," she ordered. "The Titans won't be following us." They obeyed without a word, their earlier doubts replaced by a growing fear of what else she might be capable of. As they crossed into the next sector, the environment changed. The streets widened into a massive open plaza filled with shattered statues and broken banners of old alien empires. The holographic sky above flickered, glitching unnaturally. "That's not supposed to happen," the tall cadet muttered, staring at the sky as pieces of the simulation shimmered and bent. Alyssa looked up too, her jaw tightening. "No, it's not, Commander Z." Harrock's voice came over the comm, but it was distorted, filled with static. "Cadet Carter, unauthorized, system breach detected. Proceed with caution." The squad exchanged uneasy glances. "What breach?" the fur-covered cadet asked nervously. Alyssa didn't answer right away, her gaze fixed on a shadow moving at the far end of the plaza. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. "That's not part of the test. The enemy adapts." The shadow at the far end of the plaza didn't move like a drone or a Titan. It was slow, deliberate, almost as if it was studying them. Alyssa's visor tried to identify it, but the HUD only showed static. That was impossible. The simulation's AI always registered every threat, even if you couldn't see it clearly. "Squad spread out," Alyssa ordered, her voice firm. The fur-covered cadet whispered, "What is that thing?" Alyssa kept her eyes forward. "Something the Academy didn't put here." The shadow stepped into the flickering light and the squad collectively stepped back. It was tall, taller than any Titan they had faced, its body a blend of organic muscle and shifting black metal, like it couldn't decide what form it wanted to take. Two glowing slits in its head pulsed like breathing eyes. When it moved, it didn't make a sound. The reptilian cadet gripped his rifle tighter. "Why isn't it attacking?" "Because," Alyssa said slowly, "it's learning." The squad froze as they realized what she meant. This wasn't just an adaptive AI, it was a free-roaming intelligence, the kind used in deep war simulations centuries ago, programs so dangerous they were locked away after causing real deaths. The black metal creature tilted its head slightly, then in a blur of motion, it was gone. "Where?" the tall cadet began, but his words were cut off by a scream. The creature appeared behind the fur-covered cadet, its arms splitting into 3 RP blades. Alyssa fired instantly, forcing it back, her shots hitting joints that made the creature stagger. It didn't retreat far, only enough to watch her, its glowing eyes now fixed entirely on the human. "You've got its attention," the reptilian cadet muttered, half in awe, half in fear. "Good," Alyssa replied. "That's exactly what I want." She reached into her pouch and pulled out a small metal cylinder with a black stripe down the middle. The tall cadet's eyes widened. "That's forbidden tech." Alyssa didn't deny it. "Humans call it a ghost charge," she said. "It's not a weapon, it's a hunting call." Without explaining further, she twisted the device and threw it onto the ground. It emitted no sound, no light, but the black metal creature froze as if something in the air had shifted. Then, from the surrounding ruins, faint shapes began to emerge. They were not drones, not Titans. These were old battlefield constructs, ancient autonomous units from human war archives, the kind never meant to be in a controlled test. Their forms were skeletal, their movements unnerving, their eyes glowing faint blue. The reptilian cadet whispered, "What? What did you just summon?" Alyssa's answer was chilling. The one thing an adaptive predator fears, something that can't be studied because it's already dead. The constructs moved in silence, surrounding the black metal creature. It lashed out with blinding speed, but every strike passed through the skeletal units like they were missed. Then, without warning, the constructs solidified, their edges slicing into the creature's body. Black metal sprayed like liquid shadow, sizzling as it hit the plaza floor. The squad was frozen in place, watching a battle that didn't look like part of any training program. Commander Jarek's voice burst through the comm, louder and sharper than before. "Carter, that entity is not part of the exam. What did you do?" Alyssa didn't answer, her focus locked on the fight, the black metal creature. He adapted again, shifting its form into dozens of needle-like limbs, stabbing at the constructs faster than the eye could follow. One construct dissolved instantly, but two others leapt forward, pinning the creature in place. Alyssa took her chance, sprinting forward and slamming a pulse grenade into the creature's core. The blast was blinding, the shockwaves sending the squad stumbling. When the light faded, the creature was gone. No wreckage, no trace. The constructs faded too, disappearing into the ruins like ghosts retreating to their graves. The squad stood in stunned silence. Finally, the tall cadet spoke. "That wasn't part of the test, was it?" Alyssa's expression didn't change. "No," she said, "but the galaxy won't care if the enemy's part of the test or not." The reptilian cadet looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You knew something like that could show up." Alyssa finally glanced at him, her voice low. "I didn't know. I just planned for it." Before anyone could ask more, the plaza's far gate groaned open, revealing the path to the next sector. Above them, the sky glitched again, the orange clouds now replaced with streaks of raw, unrendered black. Alyssa adjusted her gloves, her voice steady. "Stay sharp. From this point on, the exam's rules don't matter." The final push. The gate into the next sector groaned shut behind them, sealing with a hiss. The air was different here, thicker, hotter, carrying the smell of burnt metal. The ground beneath their boots trembled at irregular intervals like something massive was moving below. The holographic buildings around them flickered in and out, their walls vanishing for a second before snapping back. "This isn't just the simulation breaking," Alyssa said quietly. "It's merging." "Merging with what?" the fur-covered cadet asked. Alyssa's eyes scanned the sky, which now glitched, between storm clouds and pure black emptiness. "With the thing we fought back there." The reptilian cadet cursed under his breath. "So now the battlefield itself is alive." A low hum filled the sector, rising in pitch until it made their helmets vibrate. Then the streets around them began to change. The pavement rippled like water, forming sharp metallic spikes that shot upward, cutting off escape routes. The tall, glowing-eyed cadet raised his weapon. "We're boxed in." Alyssa's voice was calm. "No, we're being herded." The squad followed her gaze to the far end of the street where a massive structure was forming out of nothing. It wasn't a building, it was a fortress, its walls pulsing like they were alive. And standing in front of it was the black metal creature. Only this time it was bigger. Its body fused with parts of the simulation's architecture. Its eyes glowed brighter, and a distorted voice echoed through the air, not from speakers, but from everywhere at once. "Human," it said. "I have learned." The squad stiffened. Alyssa's expression didn't change, but her grip on her weapon tightened. "Good," she said, "because I'm about to teach you something new." The creature moved first, its limbs stretching unnaturally far, smashing through walls as it tried to close in. The ground beneath the squad erupted, smaller versions of the creature, fragments spawn, crawling out to attack. The fur-covered cadet fired into the swarm. "We can't hold them all off." "We're not going to," Alyssa said sharply. "We're going to end this." She slung her rifle over her shoulder and pulled out something the squad had never seen before, a small cube covered in shifting patterns of light. The reptilian cadet's eyes widened. "Is that?" "Yes," Alyssa cut him off. "A collapse key." The tall cadet nearly dropped his weapon. "That's banned in every training program. It shuts down entire war grids." Alyssa's tone was cold. "And if I use it here, it'll take the simulation with it, and everything connected to it." The squad stared at her, realize it. And dawning, she wasn't just talking about ending the test, She was talking about erasing whatever that black metal thing had become. But, the fur-covered cadet said slowly, that means if we're still inside, we won't be, Alyssa said, if we move exactly when I tell you to. The creature roared, not with sound but with a wave of distortion that bent the streets around them. Fragment spawn surged forward, climbing over each other to reach the squad. Alyssa planted the collapse key into the street, the patterns on its surface spinning faster and faster. Get to the east wall, she shouted. They ran, dodging spikes of metal and collapsing buildings, the sound of the creature's pursuit growing louder with each second. Above them, the simulated sky began to tear apart, revealing glimpses of stars, and something else, something vast and mechanical, watching. The reptilian cadet risked a glance back. It's right behind us. Alyssa didn't look. Don't stop, don't slow down. The collapse key's glow intensified, sending cracks of white light racing through the ground in all directions. The creature lunged, one massive limb slamming down just meters from them. The shockwave knocked the tall cadet off his feet, but Alyssa grabbed his arm and yanked him forward without breaking stride. The east wall loomed ahead, flickering between solid stone and transparent code. On my mark, jump through, Alyssa yelled. The ground split open behind them, the creature's limbs clawing desperately toward the key as if it knew what was coming. Now! The squad dove through the wall, landing hard on the other side. A blinding white flash swallowed the sector, followed by a soundless pulse that seemed to erase everything it touched. When the light faded, they were lying in the Academy's real training deck, the simulation chamber gone, the walls blackened and scorched. Command. Bergerac stood nearby, his eyes locked on Alyssa, his voice low. You didn't just end the exam. You destroyed the system. Alyssa stood, dusting herself off. It was compromised, she said simply. I don't leave threats alive. The squad looked at her like she wasn't just a cadet anymore, like she was something far more dangerous. Jarek's gaze lingered on her for a long moment before he finally said, Report to my office after debrief. The council will want to speak with you. Alyssa only smiled faintly. They can have notes, she said, or they can have survivors. Survivors or notes. The debriefing chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the holo recorders. Alyssa stood in the center, hands clasped behind her back, her eyes scanning the ring of figures around her. They were not just instructors. These were members of the Galactic Council, leaders from half a dozen species, each wearing the formal insignia of their worlds. A large holo display floated above them, replaying moments from the final test, the swarm of drones, the titans, the black metal creature, the collapse key. Each clip froze on Alyssa's face, her expression calm in moments where most beings would have been screaming. Cadet Carter, a tall counselor with silver skin, began, his voice cold. You went beyond the scope of your exam. You used restricted human technology, and you destroyed a simulation system worth more than the gross domestic output of 3 colonies. The recording paused on the image of the collapse key detonating. Alyssa didn't flinch. Yes, she said. I did. Another counselor, this one with scaled hands gripping the table, leaned forward. Do you realize what that looks like to the rest of the galaxy? An undisciplined human cadet, armed with illegal tech, capable of erasing entire combat grids? The murmurs around the table grew louder. One counselor, older and with milky white eyes, spoke slowly. And yet, she and her squad survived. The silver-skinned one cut in sharply. Survived because she rewrote the scenario. That creature was not even part of the exam. That creature, Alyssa interrupted, her voice level, was already inside your system before I got there. If I hadn't been in that simulation, your entire training network would have been compromised. Some counselors went quiet, others exchanged wary glances. Alyssa continued, her tone calm but edged with steel. You think I broke your rules, but the truth is your rules were already broken. I just made sure we walked out alive. The fur-covered cadet, seated off to the side with the rest of her squad, spoke up. She didn't just save us, she saved everyone who would have used that system after us. The reptilian cadet nodded. If she hadn't been human, we'd be dead. The tall, glowing-eyed cadet hesitated, then added, and if she hadn't been Alyssa, the whole academy would be gone. The counselors shifted uncomfortably at the open support from non-humans. Finally, Commander Jarok stepped forward, his presence filling the chamber. Instructor's note, he said. Cadet Carter demonstrated advanced strategic thinking, adaptive combat skill, and situational control unmatched by any in her class. The silver-skinned counselor narrowed his eyes, and also unmatched recklessness. Jarok's gaze didn't waver. Recklessness is charging ahead without knowing the cost. What she did was the opposite. She calculated the cost, and she made sure it was one we could live with. The chamber fell silent again. The oldest counselor, the one with milky eyes, leaned forward. Cadet Carter, explain to this council why you asked that question before the exam began. Alyssa met his gaze. Because in combat, the truth is simple. You either bring back survivors or you bring back notes on how you failed. I wanted them to decide before we even started what they were willing to be. Her words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. She stepped closer to the table, her voice steady. You built this academy to produce leaders. Leaders don't follow scripts. Leaders don't freeze when the plan breaks. Leaders make sure their people come home, even if the cost is high. She let her eyes sweep over each counselor in turn. You want notes? Find another human. You want survivors? Keep me in the field. The silver-skinned counselor leaned back slowly, his expression unreadable. The oldest counselor finally spoke. The council will deliberate, but history will remember this day. The session ended, the counselors filing out in silence, their robes brushing against the polished floor. Alyssa turned to leave, but Jarok stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. You've made enemies here, he said quietly, but you've also made something more important. What's that? She asked. He gave a rare, faint smile. A reputation. Outside the chamber, the corridor was crowded with cadets, instructors, and even staff from other departments. When they saw her, the whispers started immediately. That's her, the human who broke the exam. She killed a phantom unit. She fought Titans alone. She made the council back down. Alyssa walked past them without a word, her squad falling in step behind her. The fur-covered cadet grinned. So, survivors or notes? Alyssa didn't slow. Survivors, she said. Always survivors. And somewhere deep in the academy's systems, a fragment of corrupted code, the last echo of the black metal creature, watched her walk away. It pulsed once, as if amused, and then went still. For now,